Okay, we're back from recess. The next amendment up is an amendment from Senator Chris Barnett.
Ma'am, I rise for the purpose of moving to recess.
As the chair, I will rule you out of order, and we will continue to go unless you want to challenge the chair.
I'll challenge the
Objection.
chair. The rules.
Okay,
we got a job to do. I don't understand why people are trying to get her at 5.
There's been an objection for a motion to recess, so all those in favor of recessing, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, motion fails. Moving on. The next amendment on the agenda is from Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, please read the whole amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's page 135 to add a new section to Chapter 12 of the bill to read. Additional funding for GDOE's operations budget. The sum of up to $10 million is appropriated to the Guam Department of Education from excess general fund revenues of fiscal year 2023 for the purpose of supplementing GDOE's operations for fiscal year 2024, except that up to $500,000 shall be allocated to the Chamorro language program. And again, I think the Guam Department of Education has been very clear in their communication that they are facing a $30 million shortfall. And although this amendment is not for $30 million, I have communicated with the superintendent that I'll be proffering it today, and obviously they're very much in need of the funds. And again, I don't want to belabor the situation. I think we're very clear, you know, the Guam Department of Education is in need. We have taken care of the charters, and so I ask again my colleagues that for their support in taking care of all the school kids on Guam. And this $500,000 allocated to the Chamorro language program comes at the request of the Chamorro language program head, Sino Jimmy Teria, who tells me that they'll be using this to supplement the Chamorro language curriculum as well as the immersion program at PC Lujan. So again, I humbly ask the support of my colleagues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Anybody would like to speak on the Barnett amendment? Vice Speaker Barnes, you're recognized.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I rise in support of this amendment and I thank the good author, I guess from Talafofo, for doing this amendment. More importantly, as we look at the allocation for the Chamorro language program, there was a commitment by this august body to literally promote, advocate, preserve, and perpetuate our Chamorro language. And this is one way of that commitment. You know, DOE is literally takes up 3/4 of our budget, Madam Chair. And I know that the funding here is up to $10 million. And I want to support those efforts. So I rise in support of this amendment and ask my colleagues to support the efforts, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Just for information that this amendment had been proffered in another chapter and it did fail, didn't meet the requirements. So it is now being recognized in a new chapter, the same amendment. So for your information. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the amendment? Senator Brown, you're recognized. And then Senator Blas, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to ask, because, you know, I did read that letter just last week from the superintendent relaying they didn't need the $20 million back. So if I can ask the sponsor of the amendment if he'd yield, I mean, why can't we take that money that I hope is real money, if we could get it back and give it, make sure DOE has it for this $10 million that's needed and the $500,000 that's needed for the Chamorro language program? Because I'll tell you, you know, I don't like anybody speaking out of every side of their mouth. I mean, it's like when you ask someone a direct question, especially in their position of leadership, public positions of leadership, you know, I kind of like, you know, we got to go on what they say on the record and believe it. So we heard one thing at the hearings and the roundtables that we've had, and then we see an official letter that says something else, which, you know, for me, if I was ever the superintendent, which I'll never be the superintendent of education, you know, I'll always advocate, and for the times I've run any agency I've been the leader of, always advocate for my agency. That's your #1 job. advocate for your agency. And when I see, this interesting twist of the English language, somebody very creatively, if not the superintendent himself, wrote that letter, it raises question marks all over my brain. So I just wanted to ask, who's also the chair of our education committee, can you just clarify that so we can get some understanding here? Because you got the head saying, no, I don't need the money. And at the other end, you're saying, DOE really, 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 really needs the money.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Barnett, would you like to answer that question, please?
Sure. Thank you. I actually welcome that question, and I appreciate that question. I think we all read the letter. We all read the press release. And let's not kid ourselves here. We had discussed an earlier amendment where we talked about people being made to kiss the ring, people being made to jump through the hoops, people funding things outside of our authority so that they can secure loyalty and build their little fiefdoms. And correct, the superintendent was in here during the committee of the whole, has said one thing, and he did a 180, but I just want to call it what it is. It's just politics. So that $20 million was taken from the Guam Department of Education. They could have got it from anywhere else in the entire government of Guam, but instead they chose to take it from the Guam Department of Education. And there it sat for 3 months until we started hearing about this meeting that was arranged between the superintendent and the governor. And it wasn't even after the meeting. It was during the meeting that the superintendent texted me that they wanted to leave the $20 million where it was because he felt that it would jeopardize the procurements that allegedly were underway. And I say allegedly because in doing the homework and combing through the press release and his subsequent letter to me, it became clear to me that even though Adelup was saying they expedited procurements, that there weren't really any procurements done to include the mold mitigation. And so the superintendent, I think, has got himself, and these are his words, in a bad situation politically. And so I think we can all see it for what it is. The superintendent sees it for what it is. And that $20 million is where it is. And even though they have said they don't need that $20 million, they didn't necessarily mean they don't need it. They meant that they're scared for it to come back, because then all of these projects that are underway that have been that have had the procurement expedited, they're scared to have to start all the way over. And so that doesn't change the fact that they're still $30 million in the hole. That doesn't change the fact that they've continued to communicate that they're facing a significant shortfall. And so this $10 million appropriation is really a third of what they need. But I understand the hesitation, and I communicated as much to the superintendent. I told him, I said, you're making it very difficult for me as the education chair to ask the support of my colleagues during this budget session when you were waltzing around town contradicting yourself. And so, of course, we would ask that question. But because the superintendent has become entangled along with the Guam Department of Education in this weird triangle, if you will, I don't think that changes the obligation that we have to help our school kids and to help the Guam Department of Education. And so again, I just ask for the support of my colleagues, and I know that answer was a little bit long-winded, but I hope that it satisfies the question, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I appreciate the response, by the education chair, but I have to tell you, I think people need to be held responsible. I want the superintendent to either make a decision and come down here and say, yes, I need money for my agency, a Department of Education. I don't think he should be given an easy slide. Quite frankly, that's why education's in the mess it's in, even though he's only been here a short time and unfortunately he's managed to get himself in the mess that he's managed to get himself in. You know, we're all sitting here counting the clock down for how long he's going to last. I'm saying it like it is because that's a discussion. That's the reality. But, you know, I want to see education get the money, but at the other end, I think these guys, including the superintendent, need to be held responsible. They can't speak out of all sides of their mouth and say, we don't need the money, and then on the side, hey, man, I need the money. Give me 10 million. That isn't how we should be budgeting. The superintendent needs to be held responsible. And if he doesn't need the money, then come down here and tell us you don't need the money. If you really need the money, then come down here and tell us, not just us, but the public, that you really need the money and specifically for what. To let them slip and slide, that's why they get paid the big bucks, is to take on the responsibility. But you can't speak out of all sides of your mouth and then think on the side, no problem, we're going to come and rescue you. Department of Education has time, Madam Chair, with their initial budget to operate the educational system. The superintendent has time to clear his mind and decide which side of the road he's on. And we have time on an audited budget from this previous fiscal year to know what actual money we have, because I don't object to the purpose, I object to the concern because we really don't know if the money's there or not. And we're appropriating out of the sky, on top of all the other appropriations using the same funding source. That's my only reservation. That and holding these officials accountable, because I'll tell you, we let them slip and slide, and we're supposedly coming to their rescue every time without holding them accountable. And that's why the education system is in the mess that it's in. We don't run the Department of Education. The administrators run the Department of Education. And look at where we're at. Ain't that grand? Because I'll tell you, one thing they definitely preserved last year was their pay increases at the expense of everything else, including the maintenance and repair of the facilities in our schools. They would have had a year advance if they had addressed that and prioritized that last year with their funding. But did they do that? Did they do that? Of course not. Did the previous superintendent not advocate for this? Everything was, oh, no, everything else, we got to get the salary increase. That was the part, and look at where we're at now. And now all of a sudden, oh, we need the money for the kids, and oh, we need the money for the tomorrow program, and we need the money for this, we need the money. At the expense of those children, they made sure they took care of themselves. So I understand the intent, the purpose. I don't object to it. I object to the funding source, and I want the superintendent to be held accountable for what he does say publicly with regards to the operations of DOE. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
You're very welcome, Senator Brown. Senator Frank Blas, Minority Leader, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, Madam Chair, I applaud the chairperson for education. For trying every which way to be able to get assistance to the Department of Education. And, you know, I have to agree, though, with gentle lady from Paco Bay. I remember when the good gentleman from EPEN, Chris, you're from EPEN, right? Yes or no? Okay. You know, he stood and vehement and was stern and you know, wanted to make sure that the money, the funding, along with my colleague who sits to the left of me, the funding for the Department of Education, because it was necessary, it was needed, and you know, like was told, as soon as it was gotten, all of a sudden, DOE says they don't need it. And then we have this here. Now, before we get to this, thank you, Senator Brown, for bringing, she's right. GDOE had $22 million that they decided for CIP projects and to improve school facilities. That was provided to them by the federal government. But they saw better fit to be able to use that money elsewhere and dug themselves into a greater hole. And we've got this here now, this amendment, looking for $10 million from excess 23 funds, fiscal year 23 funds. Before I get into OFB, if we were to consider this, what's the running tally on that excess fiscal year 2023? How much have we appropriated from the excess fiscal year 2023, which, by the way, we're not even there yet?
Currently, Senator, the amount that we appropriated right now in the excess of FY23 is $600,000. If this provision should pass, it will bring it up to $10.6 million.
On top of, and what the anticipation was that we were going to get 12 million?
If you're referring to the July CER report,
Right.
I believe the estimate is almost approximately 16 million by the end of the year.
Okay. And when would this money be made available if, let's say that, all the stars align and everything? When would it be made available to appropriate?
If you want to be on the safe side, I would assume you...
No, let's be on the fiscally responsible side.
And that, I guess, would be on the safe side. You would wait until the actual audit is completed so you know exactly how much was actually realized in surplus money for FY23.
Which is when?
In FY23, that would not be available until the law requires that the audit be done by June 30th of the following year.
This is the same law that I guess we were supposed to follow for the report on audited for fiscal year 2022, right?
It's the same law, Senator, yes.
And it's the same law that has yet to have been satisfied because as of the date, we don't have that report.
The report has not been issued out by the Office of a Public Auditor, yes.
And I bring this up because, again, I have to agree. There's $20 million. First off, there was $22 million they decided to squander away because there was another funding source that could have been used, but somebody didn't want to ask this body for help. And then there's another $20 million that was provided by this body, but they were said, oh, no, we don't need it. Those were monies that were actually available now. And the good gentleman proffering this amendment, recognizing that he needs to get the help, but unfortunately this help won't come until June of next year. $42 million now or $10 million later. I hope the offer of the amendment doesn't realize, I'm not blaming you. In fact, I applaud you. Okay? I applaud you for this. So don't bash me on your, on your social media site. Okay, but I just want to, you know, we had that opportunity. $42 million now, or $10 million later. Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Minority Leader Senator Blas. Anyone else would like to speak on the Senator Barnett amendment utilizing excess revenue for FY23? Senator San Augustine, you are recognized, Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I rise in support of this amendment. Sure, everybody's going to talk about everything and anything under the water, under the bridge. But at the end of the day, we all know that of the FY23 excess revenue, a lot of it won't get confirmed until next year. And I know the author understands that. Confirm. Now, if something was to happen next month that says that we have that 16 becomes 20 some or whatever, then it becomes a comfortable zone. If it drops down, then so be it, it drops. But at least there's an opportunity to find ways to fund DOE. And like everybody was talking about, the 20 million, never mind, that's gone. The 20 million is already being used to fix the DOE. Already we passed, we all adopted the changing of the 50 million appropriation to rainy day fund. We're able to take care of that. So that 20 million is going to be resolved real quick. But we're focusing on, and the author is focusing on trying to find additional $10 million. And I don't see any reason why not. If it comes, it comes. They're planning at least that if the money is there, DOE has it. Because at the end of the day, if my colleagues would visit the Office of Finance and Budget every now and then, maybe quarterly, you can see how other agencies are working. Are they filling their vacancies? Are they actually spending the money they need to spend? Then you can ask yourself the same question that you seem so intelligent to comment and state here. Because I can almost bet, and I'm not going to put too much money, because that hardly any of you ever come to my office or the Office of Finance and Budget and say to Steve, Steve, tell me where the agency's at. Or even call. I know my vice chair calls and teases Steve every now and then, where's it going? But you know what I'm trying to get at, my colleagues, is that this is a good amendment. And if you don't like it, I guess you're just going to vote against it. And then the next amendment, you're going to vote for or against. At the end of the day, this amendment is to find funds and hopefully be the first to tap that money at least for DOE. And if the money becomes true, then it's easy to stand up with the author and say, Governor, where's the money? This one is very clear. 23 in FY23 excess, and if they don't get it, and if they end up being delayed for whatever reasons, when we come back for the next budget, we ask to carry it over until expended. And there's nothing wrong with that then, if the money is true, especially if they didn't get it. But if they did get it, then we can ask them, where'd you spend it? And I know the author's going to ask that question. Where did you spend it? Did you in fact give it to the Chamorro language program? Because if he doesn't ask it, I'll ask it as oversight chair for appropriation. I'll call an oversight here and ask them, did you get the money? I know you did. Did you spend it like you're supposed to spend it? And we'll be able to see it exactly if they spend it for what they're supposed to spend it for. And when we want to talk about what happened 2 years ago on the pay raise, folks, think about it. What happened? DOE decided this on their own, their management. They asked US DOE, can we not do this maintenance and pay the pay raise? The US DOE said, you got it, you're blessed, let it happen. Done. And they moved on. But this 10 million for me, this amendment is good. I'm here to support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. That being said, Is there anyone else who would like to speak on it? Speaker Chalahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really glad to hear the Chair of Appropriations saying we're good for this, because I was beginning to doubt after the OFB seems to discount that it's not solid to appropriate from FY23 funds. And we'll probably get another letter from the governor calling us hypocrites and all kinds of crap because we're using FY23 funds, when in fact FY23 excess funds is what she used for 22% pay raises across the board. FY23 excess funds is what she agreed was available when we passed a bill to pay the GPA credits. But I agree with some of my colleagues across the aisle that when they say the money's not there, it's not that it's not there. Is that she's not agreeing to use it, for example, for the LEAP, which is the exact same funding source, excess FY 2023. And she might come up with some reason not to use it for GDOE for this 10 million appropriation. But I have no problem saying let's use this based on the CRER and the mandates that we've put in place as to these CRERs. They're not perfect. We're always guessing. So let's admit we're guessing. But this is our best guess, that we have, in fact, already collected excess revenue. So we could, right now, it's the end of August. We've got 1 more month. So we can take a gamble that we're going to keep this excess revenue that we've collected and use it. Or that we're going to lose it to some other use, like these very vague appropriation statutes that say you're authorized to use whatever you want. And I'm not that, to be honest, I feel like I'm torn. Because does DOE need the money? Well, I thought they proved to us that they needed the money. I'm all gung-ho. I want them to get what they need. I want to stop their excuses. They told us they would not be able to hire all the SPED teachers that they need if they don't get this. They told us they would not be able to, count on the hiring that they need. OFB disagrees with that. They think DOE might have vacancies and they can fund things. Well, we've heard that for years too. We've heard both sides of this argument for years. But what we've really seen, and one of my colleagues really did a very good job showing the politics of this whole situation, is that GDOE, I thought this legislature was doing a great job finally to get GDOE out of the begging position, the political. We need the governor and we need politics in order to get our own money. We need politics, or that GDOE thinks they need to play a political game in order to get Simon Sanchez built. That they needed to play a political game in order to do the pay raises, because it was the governor who said, we are in an election year, we are giving pay raises to our teachers. And I was all happy, and wow, where did they find that money? Only to come and find out it was the DOE using their ARP funds who completely funded the pay raises. And that was the DOE ARP funds, not even the governor's ARP funds. So I'm glad the teachers got their raises. I don't want to lose any more teachers, but I really thought we were going to go down this track of empowering the Department of Education to do what it's supposed to do, stop playing politics, stop needing to beg, and just report the truth. And so that's a little bit, the only reason I wouldn't support this, but I'm going to support it. I'm going to still give them the benefit of the doubt and a good faith backing with all the powers that we have in the legislature, because I don't really care who the superintendent is at this point. We've seen so much politics in this position. The board, similar. But what I really feel for, again, I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but I feel for those who have to use the Department of Education system, are not going to be accepted into the charter schools, are not going to be able to pay tuition at private schools, and they have to use the Department of Education system, and we owe this to them to give it our best. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My time is up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just for clarification, it's not 2 more months of CR. It's not 1 more month, it's 2 months. August reports to July, September reports August, October reports September. So
but I'm just saying we only have 1 more month in the fiscal year.
Understood.
September. That's
Yes.
the end of the fiscal year.
Understood. Senator Tello, speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm sure everyone in this body wants to assist DOE, but wants to assist DOE now, not anticipating something that's not going to be even foreseeable until next year, June. The school year is over. The issue is today, my colleagues, today. So why are we using excess revenue from FY23 when it's not even going to be realized? Talked about, political games being played outside. The political games are starting to be played right here in this body, pretending that there is money today to help DOE. When you have a superintendent who says, no, leave $20 million with the governor, where she took this money, put it in an account, and commingled it with an $8 million refund from FEMA? That wasn't supposed to happen. And we're here fighting for that. There was an amendment that was put in this bill to discuss this. But now we're hearing that the superintendent doesn't need it. It's okay. And let's talk about the $100 million that DOE has received from federal funds that still have not been spent.
Point of information,
So this
Mr.
would,
Chair. The $100 million in federal funds are already obligated and earmarked for the
it has
numerous
not
and plentiful
been
capital improvement
spent or
projects,
utilized.
Mr. Chair. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. But it has not been spent or utilized because we're still crying about the schools not being open. And if we had the oversight hearing that we were supposed to have this evening that was advertised to bring DOE in front of us, we could get more information that everybody seems to want to have. But that's been canceled. The oversight chair canceled the oversight hearing.
The oversight
Senator
hearing
Tello.
is still going to happen. I postponed it till September 8th at 5 p.m.
Well,
All of the concerns, questions, complaints, comments will be addressed.
Okay.
But I postponed it because we anticipated working late in this budget
thank you,
session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Senator
you
Barnett.
for that. But however, we need that information now. You're putting an amendment in front of us using funds that are not going to be realized until next year, June. If we're lucky, because look what's happening here. DOA is setting precedents and moving that date from June 30th till where are we at, right? It's August 29th, people? And we still haven't got the audit for FY22? If we really want to make a difference for DOE, then we shouldn't be using FY23 funds because we all know that, it's 15 million right now that's supposed to be in the CRER report? When someone mentioned I think it was OFB mentioned that technically it's 7 million that's in the CRER, the excess revenue so far in FY23. I mean, that doesn't even meet the 10 million. So if we're really wanting to help DOE people, instead of just throwing numbers out there saying, oh, I'm helping DOE, but they don't know the underlining of this, and the underlining is my people who are watching, teachers and parents who are watching, this money will not be realized until next year. The problem is today. I want to make an amendment to this amendment to strike out FY23 and put FY22, audited FY22, because that money would be more realistic And we will know if there's funding there in the next 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks. Everyone's sitting here, oh yeah, we'll just have this money and it'll be ready in whenever. No, do something. Do something today. Everyone screams about helping DOE. And this amendment comes in using FY23? I'm livid. My amendment, Mr. Chair, is to strike out FY23 and use FY22. Everybody has been so jolly about using FY22 money. We're at what, 12 million? Now that we added the 500,000 to Fishermen's Co-op, we're looking at close to 12,900,000. If the author of this amendment is serious, and put realistic money that we're going to see in the next couple weeks, not next year. So my amendment is to change it from FY23 to FY22.
Okay, on Santello, as I read the amendment, can you just read it so we can write it in up here exactly how you're looking at it?
It's very simple to use excess general revenue of fiscal year 2022. Strike out 2023 and put 2022.
Okay. Does anyone would like to speak to the amendment?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move to recess for an hour to give our team a break and then continue working for a couple more hours this evening on the budget. We are up against the clock, but I think our team will need a break right now.
Okay, so let's take a recess until it's 5:50. Recess till 6:30. Thank you.